Hi guys, I'm Naomi from Jealous of the Birds, and welcome to episode 8 of Jealous of the Bops. In this episode, we're going to focus on John Lennon's Plastic Ono Band and Neo's For All We Know. As always, I've got my coffee. Let's get stuck in. So Plastic Ono Band is John Lennon's debut solo record, recorded and released in 1970, only 8 months after the Beatles disbanded. And on the same day of its release, Yoko Ono also released an album with the same name and featuring a strikingly similar album cover and recording credits with more or less the same band. That band, unsurprisingly, was the Plastic Ono Band, which was this new outfit of changing musicians selected by John and Yoko to play on their records. And in many ways, it stood as a kind of symbol or concept in their relationship as much as, a pragmatic creative decision by them both. The album came out to warm critical reception and did well in the UK and US charts, and even in 2012, Rolling Stone ranked it number 23 of the 500 greatest albums of all time. So, why is it so great? Well, to put it bluntly, on Plastic Ono Band, John Lennon is probably at his most vulnerable, direct and acerbic. Not too long after the Beatles broke up, John and Yoko began primal therapy together under the instruction of an American psychologist named Arthur Yanoff. The whole theory behind primal therapy is very similar to a lot of the reasoning behind Freud, except instead of psychoanalysis and very deep, long discussions, patients were encouraged to emotionally relive traumatic childhood experiences in order to overcome them. The couple undertook several months of this therapy until John's US visa ran out and they returned to the UK. And before you know it, in songs that would eventually end up on Plastic Ono Band, he's diving into deep-rooted issues with his mother and father, very existential conflicts, his feelings about religion and the political climate of the time, and his resentment towards the Beatles and his fame. And he really goes all out. The album opens with a heart-wrenching track called Mother, and with the lines, "Mother, you had me, but I never had you." That's completely the wellspring for all the emotional intensity for the rest of the record. The sonic palette of the record ranges from massive piano ballads like Mother and God, kind of gritty bluesy numbers, softer moments of jazz like in Hold On, and then very Dylan-esque, kind of Donovan-like folk tunes like Working Class Hero and Look at Me. I kind of think that a lot of the disparate genres in Plastic Ono Band are given a lot of cohesiveness through John's voice and especially his lyricism. One of the most daring aspects of this record to me is the way in which John chooses to tackle these massive concepts. Like, he has songs that are just titled Love, Isolation, God, Mother. He wants to strip them of all their pretense and really get to what he considers their essence. There's a ferocity to that that's super compelling. And it really shows the extent to which he was willing to be so bare and blatant. This is definitely exemplified in the first song that I want to share with you, called Isolation. Lyrically, it's an acknowledgement that despite all the glamour of the accolades and fame and renown that John experienced during his lifetime, in many ways it cut him off from society and made him pretty dependent on Yoko, especially now that things had soured with the Beatles, and no doubt many journalists were on the lookout for backbiting and any kind of scandal between its former members that they could get their hands on. He kind of had to have his guard up all the time, whether he liked it or not. But even beyond this context, the song is extremely allegorical and accessible. You know, the lyrical language is very simple and direct, and it pertains to this idea of the aloneness that's felt by every human being, at one point or another in their lifetime. The irony of this song is that even though it's dealing with the theme of isolation, it's spinning a thread between the speaker and the listener. So here it is, Isolation by John Lennon.
People say we got it made. Don't they know we're so afraid? Isolation. alone. Everybody got to have a home. Isolation. Just a boy and a little girl trying to change the whole wide world.
Neo is the project of British electronic singer-songwriter Neo Jessica Joshua. Her style is self-proclaimed wonky funk and is highly influenced by soul, jazz, R&B, and funk sensibilities, just teeming with fat beats, synthesizers, and just frankly bass lines that slap. First heard about her music through my good friend and bass player Pete, and was lucky enough to see her perform live at the Great Escape Festival in Brighton to an absolutely electrified crowd. Once you hear the soulfulness and the range and the dexterity of her voice, it's not surprising to learn that she studied vocal jazz at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama in London, and that she was also part of an a cappella group for years before she embarked on this solo project. Her debut album, For All We Know, released in 2016, was really her conscious effort to make a kind of indelible mark on the music scene and to really establish her as an artist to watch. The record's title is a nod to the 1930s classic by the same name and really immediately sets up Neo as someone who's very aware of the history of jazz, but also where it could go. In many ways, the lushness of this record is owed in part to its kind of collaborative effort. With over 10 different co-writers and a host of co-producers, Neo's using all the tools at her disposal to really deliver what can only be considered as pop bangers without all the kind of sugary and cliche mainstream production. The first track by Neo that I want to share is called Fool to Love, and this is one of the first songs of hers that I heard and I was immediately blown away. Despite dealing with the regret of a failed relationship, the whole vibe of this song just makes you want to dance. It becomes more of a celebration that the speaker has gotten out of this unhealthy relationship and is moving on with her life in a very empowering way. Neo's voice is on point. The song as a whole is just teeming with groove and rhythm and melody so that, you know, this song could be stuck in your head for days afterwards. So here it is, Fool to Love by Neo.
Hide from me this pleasure over pain, but who loved you? It seems that it rains on me again, 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 yeah, again, again, again. I was a fool to love you. Yeah, we could have had it all. I was a fool to love you.
The second song by John Lennon that I want to share with you is called Love. If isolation was a question, then love is the answer. The lyrics have a very symmetrical and mirrored quality to them because almost every line begins and ends with the word love. In that sense, I would argue that it really captures a lot of what John at his core strove to embody, not only in his life, but also in his politics. Love was all-encompassing to him. It was his ultimate purpose. It was the only saving grace, not only for, you know, humanity that was riddled with conflict, but also for himself, you know? Love for yourself, love for your lover, love for your fellow man. It started from within and then burst out, and this trajectory could go on infinitely if only we'd let it. John, to varying degrees of success, tried to let it do just that. Without a doubt, this is one of my absolute favourite John Lennon songs, and it still hits me every time. Love by John Lennon.
Love is touch. Touch is love. Love is real. asking to be loved. Love is you, you and me. Love is knowing we can be.
The second song by Now that I want to share with you is called Bad Blood, and it covers similar themes to the track I just shared. It has one of the strongest choruses on the entire record, and I can honestly vouch for how magnificently this translates live, because everybody is just waiting for that drop to happen, and when it does happen, you just lose your mind. One thing I've noticed is that Now keeps a really skillful ear on the dynamic of the song and really gives the listener so many moments of suspense and then release. If you listen to just one track on this record, please, please, please let it be Bad Blood. So here it is, Bad Blood by Now.
Do you remember the holidays slipped away, time and place? I definitely remember lying on my back and seeing clouds and rays. We're dreaming with feelings, ooh, forever we're young, pages unsung. Ooh, I feel that you